I had 60 seconds before the champagne toast and the gold-plated pistol. My hand trembled just enough to make the pen stutter across the receipt paper. The folded square felt impossibly fragile between my fingers, like it might crumble to dust before I reached table 7. Around me, the gilded lotus pulsed with the quiet violence of old money, crystals singing against bone china, laughter polished smooth as river stones, the rustle of designer fabric against buttersoft leather. Outside, the city sprawled like a living thing, all neon and chaos. But in here, the air was thick, perfumed, drowning. I crossed the dining room like I was walking toward a cliff's edge in the dark. Jack sat with his back to the windows, the skyline fractured behind him like a crown of broken glass. He looked like he'd been forged in fire and left to cool, all sharp angles and controlled stillness. Black hair pushed back from his face, ink crawling up from his collar in deliberate, beautiful violence. His tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than my mother's entire hospital bill. His hands rested on the white tablecloth, utterly still, but I'd seen those hands before, moving plates, adjusting silverware with the precision of a surgeon or an executioner. Across from him, Kim leaned forward, her manicured fingers brushing his wrist. Her engagement ring caught the low light, scattering diamonds across the table like promises. She looked like a woman counting down to her wedding day. She wasn't. 30 minutes ago, I'd watched her whisper the order for his murder in rapid-fire Korean, her smile never slipping once. The receipt left my fingers just as the lights died. For a heartbeat, the gilded lotus held its breath, crystal suspended mid-clink, laughter caught in throats. The world balanced on a razor's edge. Then Jack moved, and everything shattered. The table flipped with surgical precision, champagne flutes exploding against marble as he used the heavy wood as a shield. Kim's scream cut through the darkness, high and theatrical, but I was already moving on instinct, muscle memory from years of navigating a cramped kitchen overriding the terror flooding my veins. The first gunshot cracked like lightning in a closed room. I dove through the swinging kitchen doors as the dining room erupted into chaos. Muzzle flashes strobed through the darkness like a nightclub from hell. Someone was shouting in Korean. Glass kept breaking over and over, a symphony of destruction. My chef whites were already soaked with spilled wine. Or maybe blood. I couldn't tell, didn't want to know. The kitchen was a maze of stainless steel and fire. I grabbed the first thing my hand found, a cleaver still warm from prep work, the weight of it foreign and perfect in my palm. A man in black tactical gear crashed through the doors behind me, weapon raised, and I didn't think. I just swung. The blade caught him across the forearm. He howled, gun clattering to the tile, and I was already scrambling past him, deeper into the kitchen, toward the loading docks, toward any exit that wasn't filled with bullets. Then Jack was there. He materialized from the smoke and darkness like something summoned, his suit jacket gone, shoulder holster visible, a gun in each hand. Blood streaked his cheek. Not his, I thought, hoped. His eyes found mine across the chaos, and something passed between us, some wordless understanding that we were both already dead if we didn't move right now. "Stay behind me," he said, voice cut glass and gravel. 2 more men burst through the doors. Jack fired without looking, the shots so close together they sounded like one. Both men dropped. He was already moving, his free hand grabbing my wrist, dragging me past the walk-in freezer, past the prep stations where I'd chopped vegetables just an hour ago in a different life. The loading dock doors stood open, winter air rushing in like salvation. Jack's SUV idled in the alley, driver slumped against the steering wheel. Jack swore in Korean, pulled the body out with one hand, and shoved me toward the passenger side. "Get in. Now." Behind us, more shouting, more footsteps. The kitchen doors slammed open again, and Jack put 3 rounds through the doorway without aiming, buying us seconds. I still had the cleaver in my hand when we peeled out into Chicago's frozen night, leaving the gilded lotus burning behind us. The mansion rose from the darkness like a fortress, all sharp edges and cold stone, surrounded by walls that promised either safety or imprisonment. I couldn't tell which. Jack hadn't spoken since we left the city limits. He drove with the same controlled violence he'd used to flip that table, checking mirrors, taking turns that didn't make sense until I realized he was watching for tails. My chef whites were stiff with dried blood. The cleaver sat in my lap like an accusation. The SUV rolled through gates that closed behind us with the finality of a coffin lid. Inside, the mansion was all dark wood and darker silence. Jack's hand closed around my wrist, not rough, but absolute, and he led me through hallways that smelled of leather and gun oil until we reached a room with no windows. He flicked on a single lamp. The door clicked shut behind us. "Phone," he said. I fumbled in my pocket, handed it over. He removed the battery with practiced efficiency, pocketed both pieces. His eyes never left my face. "Sit." I sat on the leather chair. He indicated, still clutching the cleaver. He noticed, and something that might have been amusement flickered across his blood-streaked face before dying just as quickly. "You can put that down. If I wanted you dead, you'd be decorating my trunk right now." I set the cleaver on the side table. My hands were shaking again. Jack circled me slowly, a predator assessing prey. "Tell me about your family." The question landed like a slap. Not "why did you warn me?" or "who are you working for?" Just "family," said like he already knew the answer, and was testing me. "My mother," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "She's at Northwestern Memorial. Stage 4 cancer. The bills. The bills are $147,000. He said it like he was reading a grocery list. "You work double shifts. You sold your car last month. You're 3 weeks from eviction." Ice flooded my veins. "How do you?" "I know everything about everyone who touches my world." He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the tattoos snaking up his neck, Korean characters I couldn't read. "What I don't know is why a broke waitress with everything to lose decided to play hero tonight." "I'm not a hero." The words came out sharp. She was going to kill you. Right there. And you didn't know. And that matters to you. Why? Because nobody deserves to die with a smile on their face thinking they're loved. Something shifted in his expression, too quick to name. He crouched down until we were eye level, and I saw it then, the calculation behind the controlled facade, the man who'd built an empire by knowing exactly which pressure points to press. "Your mother," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. "Is she safe? They know I helped you. They know where I work. They know. I have 4 men outside her room." His voice cut through my rising panic like a blade. "Nobody touches her. Nobody touches you. Not until I decide what to do with you. I saved your life. You interrupted my evening." He stood, towering over me. "Now, I need to know if you're an asset or a liability. So I'll ask you again, Annabelle, why did you really warn me?" The way he said my name, like he'd already dissected every piece of my life and found me wanting, made me stand up, cleaver forgotten, fear replaced by something hotter. Because it was the right thing to do. And because I met his eyes, held them. Because my mother taught me that silence makes you complicit. So I spoke up. And if that makes me a liability, then kill me. But you make sure my mother gets her treatment first. For a long moment, the only sound was our breathing. Then Jack smiled, and it was the most dangerous thing I'd seen all night. "Sit down, Annabelle. We need to talk about your future." The alarm screamed to life before I could sit back down. Jack's gun was in his hand before I registered the sound, his body already moving toward the door with fluid precision. Red emergency lights pulsed through the hallway beyond. painting everything in blood and shadow. How many? He barked into a comms device I hadn't seen him grab. Static. Then nothing. His jaw tightened. Stay behind me. We moved through the corridor, Jack's weapon raised, my heart hammering against my ribs. The silence between alarm pulses felt worse than the noise, thick and waiting, like the moment before a bone breaks. Through a window, I caught movement in the grounds. Dark figures, too many of them, moving with military efficiency through the manicured gardens. These aren't restaurant thugs, Jack muttered. These are professionals. A door exploded inward 3 rooms down. Jack fired twice, the muzzle flash searing my vision. Someone screamed. He grabbed my wrist, and we ran the opposite direction, his grip iron, my chef's clogs, slapping against marble that probably cost more than my mother's surgery. The panic room, he said. East wing. We rounded a corner, and Jack stopped so suddenly I crashed into his back. He was staring at my purse, the one I'd been carrying all night, now sitting on a console table where he must have dropped it during our interrogation. His eyes narrowed. When's the last time you opened that? What? At the restaurant. I grabbed my... He was already dumping the contents. Lipstick, crumpled receipts, my employee ID, and a small glass vial, the kind used for injectable medication. My mother's insulin. The visiting nurse had given it to me this morning because the hospital pharmacy was back-ordered. Jack held it up to the light. There, embedded in the rubber stopper, a tiny piece of metal gleamed. A tracking chip, smaller than a grain of rice. The air left my lungs. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't. I know. His voice was flat, lethal calm. They planted it. Probably when they were planning the restaurant hit. Insurance policy. He crushed the vial under his heel, which means they've been inside my security perimeter for the last 40 minutes. Guilt crashed over me like ice water. Jack, I'm so sorry. Apologize later. Run now. Gunfire erupted behind us, closer than before. The mansion's lights died completely, plunging us into darkness cut only by emergency strobes. Jack pulled me forward, navigating by memory through corridors I couldn't see, his hand the only solid thing in a world coming apart. The panic room door was disguised as a bookshelf. Jack's palm hit a biometric scanner, and the walls slid open with a hydraulic hiss. He shoved me inside first, followed, and the steel door sealed behind us with the heavy finality of a bank vault. For 5 seconds, we stood in the dark, breathing hard. Then dim lights flickered on, revealing a space no bigger than a walk-in closet. Weapons lined one wall. Monitors showed the mansion's exterior, now swarming with at least 15 armed figures. On one screen, I watched 3 of Jack's security team go down in coordinated crossfire. Internal betrayal, Jack said, scanning the monitors. They knew exactly which routes to take, which systems to disable. His fist slammed against the wall. Someone on my payroll sold me out. I sank against the cold steel, the weight of it crushing me. They used me. They used my mother to get to you. They used your love for her. He didn't look at me, but his voice had lost its sharp edge. That's not weakness. That's just being human. Human gets people killed in your world. Yes. He turned, and in the strobing monitor light, his face was all shadow and sharp angles. But it also saved my life tonight. So maybe there's value in it after all. Outside, an explosion rocked the mansion. Dust rained from the ceiling. Jack was already pulling up schematics on a tablet. Emergency tunnel, he said, leads to a garage half a mile out. We have maybe 3 minutes before they bring heavy equipment. He handed me a gun. Our fingers brushed in the exchange. And something passed between us, recognition, maybe, that we were both marked now, both hunted, both irreversibly tangled in each other's survival. Can you shoot? I thought of the cleaver, the man's scream, the blood. I can learn fast. Jack's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Good, because lesson 1 starts now. He hit the release, and the tunnel yawned open before us, dark and unknown as our future. The safe house was nothing like the mansion, a converted warehouse in a part of the city where questions weren't asked and sirens were just background noise. Concrete floors, exposed pipes, a single mattress in the corner that had seen better decades. But it was secure, off-grid, and most importantly, still standing. I sat on a metal folding chair. The gun Jack had given me resting on the table between us like a promise or a threat. My uniform was ruined beyond saving. Jack had stripped down to a black t-shirt, his tattoos on full display now, intricate dragons and Korean script winding up both arms, disappearing under the fabric. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a bottle someone had stashed in a cabinet. "Drink," he said, sliding one toward me. I did. It burned going down, but the burn felt cleaner than everything else. Jack remained standing, backlit by the single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. He'd been making calls for the last 20 minutes, his voice low and rapid in Korean. Now he pocketed his phone and fixed me with a look that made my spine straighten. "Your mother is stable," he said. "I've moved her to a private facility. Better equipment, better doctors. She'll have round-the-clock care." Relief flooded through me, so intense it felt like drowning. "Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever." "You don't have to wonder." He took a slow sip of whiskey. "I bought the debt 3 hours ago." The relief crystallized into ice. "What? All $147,000, plus the hospital your mother was staying at. I acquired controlling interest last month. It was a strategic investment. His eyes never left mine, but now it serves a more immediate purpose." I stood up, the chair screeching against concrete. "You're saying you own your mother's life." He said it without inflection, just pure fact. Her treatment, her medication, her room, her doctors. All of it flows through institutions I control. He set his glass down with deliberate care, which means I control whether she gets the best care available or gets transferred back to the county hospital where she'll be dead in 6 weeks. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table to keep from swaying. "You son of a... I'm a businessman, Annabelle, and right now you're the best asset I have." He moved closer, and I saw it then, not cruelty, but pure calculation. The same look he'd had before overturning that table, before firing blind into the kitchen. Survival at any cost. Kim and my cousin Dae-hyun orchestrated tonight. They have backing from the Italians, possibly the Russians. This isn't just about killing me. It's about a complete hostile takeover of everything I've built. And what does that have to do with me? Everything. He pulled out his phone, swiped through photos, turned the screen toward me. Security footage from the restaurant, time-stamped. Kim meeting with men in expensive suits. Dae-hyun speaking at what looked like a family gathering. They think you're dead or running. They think I'm wounded and paranoid. They think they've won. His eyes locked onto mine. "But they don't know about you. You're a ghost to them. An invisible waitress who served them drinks and heard their secrets." Understanding crashed over me like cold water. "You want me to spy? I want you to help me burn their entire operation to the ground." He pocketed the phone. "In exchange, your mother gets the best oncologist in the country. Experimental treatments, clinical trials, whatever it takes. Your family's debt disappears. You disappear. New identity, new life, wherever you want it. Clean slate. And if I refuse?" The silence stretched thin as wire. "Then I'll still protect you," Jack said quietly, "because you saved my life and I pay my debts. But Your mother goes back to Northwestern Memorial. Standard care. Standard odds. He paused. I think you know what those odds are. I did. 6 months, the doctor had said. Maybe less. My hands were shaking again. I pressed them flat against the table, felt the cold metal bite into my palms. Everything I'd done tonight, the note, the cleaver, the running, it was all supposed to be one moment of courage, one good deed in a life full of powerlessness. But Jack was right. The moment I'd slipped him that receipt, I'd stopped being invisible. I'd stepped into his world, and his world didn't let you step back out. What would I have to do? Jack's expression didn't change, but something in his posture eased. Learn, train, become someone who can move through their world without raising suspicion. He pulled out a chair, sat across from me like we were negotiating a business contract. Daehyun and Kim are planning a wedding, a merger ceremony to unite the families against me. You'll attend as an insider I've captured and turned. You'll gather intelligence. And when the moment comes, his hand moved to the gun on the table, pushed it toward me. You'll help me end this. You're asking me to kill people. I'm asking you to survive. There's a difference. He leaned back, and for the first time since the restaurant, he looked tired. Human. They'll come for you anyway. Annabelle, the moment they realize you're alive, you're a loose end. At least with me, you have a chance to strike first. I looked at the gun, at Jack, at the future narrowing to a single, brutal point. My mother gets the treatment. All of it, no matter what happens to me. You have my word. The word of a crime boss. His smile was sharp as broken glass. The word of a man who's still breathing because you decided to give a damn. That's worth more than you think. I picked up the gun. It felt heavier than it had in the tunnel, weighted with everything it represented, everything I was about to become. Then teach me, I said, teach me how to survive your world. Jack raised his whiskey glass in a mock toast. Welcome to the family business, Annabelle. Lesson 1, trust no one. Not even me. He drained his glass, and I saw it in his eyes. The same desperate calculation I felt clawing at my chest. We were both trapped now, bound together by bullets and betrayal and the savage mathematics of survival. I drank, and the burn felt like baptism. The training started before dawn. Jack's chief of security was a woman named Yuna, compact, efficient, with scars that told stories she'd never speak aloud. She looked at me the way a sculptor might examine a block of marble, assessing what needed to be carved away, what could be sharpened, what was already broken beyond repair. You held the cleaver wrong, she said on day 1, circling me in the warehouse's cleared center space. But you held it. That's more than most. The days blurred into a rhythm of pain and repetition. Yuna taught me how to fall without breaking, how to strike without telegraphing, how to read a room for exits and threats in the same sweep of the eyes. My muscles screamed. My knuckles split and healed and split again. I learned to field strip a Glock blindfolded, to pick a lock with a hairpin, to lie so smoothly that even I believed it. Jack watched from the shadows sometimes, silent as a ghost, his presence a constant weight on my peripheral vision. Again, Yuna would say, and I'd go again, and again, until my body moved before my mind could hesitate, until violence became vocabulary. 3 weeks in, she put me on the mat with Jack. You need to fight someone who won't pull punches, Yuna said, though we all knew that wasn't the only reason. She'd seen the way Jack and I orbited each other, 2 celestial bodies caught in gravity's ruthless mathematics. He moved like water, like smoke, like every dangerous thing that looked beautiful until it killed you. I lasted 45 seconds before he had me pinned, my wrist locked, his body pressing mine into the concrete with controlled precision. You're hesitating, he said, breath warm against my ear. Why? Because you're faster. Wrong answer. He released my wrist, but didn't move away. You're hesitating because you're still thinking like a victim. Victims ask permission. Survivors take opportunities. He shifted his weight fractionally, a test, a trap, an invitation. I saw the opening and didn't think, just drove my knee up and twisted. He grunted, surprised, and I used his momentum to reverse our positions. Suddenly I was on top, my forearm across his throat, both of us breathing hard. Our eyes locked. His were dark as deep water, and I was drowning. Better, he said softly. Neither of us moved. The warehouse had gone silent, except for our breathing, synchronized and too fast. I felt his pulse under my forearm, steady despite everything, and realized mine matched it beat for beat. Annabelle. My name in his mouth sounded like a question he didn't know how to ask. I pulled back, stood up, offered him a hand. He took it, and the contact sent electricity racing up my arm. We stood there, hands clasped, the space between us charged with everything we weren't saying. Una cleared her throat from across the room. I'll be outside. 15 minutes. The door clanged shut behind her. Jack released my hand slowly, like letting go of something that might shatter. You're getting stronger. I'm getting better at faking it. Same thing in this world. He moved to the table where water bottles sweated in the warehouse heat. Toss me one. I caught it reflexively. Another small victory of trained instinct. Your mother asked about you yesterday. My chest tightened. What did you tell her? That you're working a special assignment. That you'll visit soon. He drank, and I watched his throat work. She's responding well to the treatment. Dr. Chun thinks the new protocol might actually buy her years, not months. Relief and guilt warred in my chest. Relief that she was alive. Guilt that her survival was purchased with my complicity in whatever bloody reckoning was coming. Thank you, I said quietly, for keeping your word. I always keep my word, Annabelle. That's how you survive in a world built on betrayal. He set the bottle down, moved closer. But I need to know you'll keep yours. When we walk into that wedding, when Kim and Dae-hyun are right there in front of you, can you do what needs to be done? The question hung between us, heavy as a loaded gun. I don't know, I admitted. I've never killed anyone. Neither had I the first time. His hand came up, hesitated, then brushed a strand of sweat-dampened hair from my face. The gesture was so unexpectedly gentle it hurt. I was 17. Someone came for my father. I had to choose between my conscience and my survival. Which did you choose? Both. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I forgot how to breathe. I survived, but I never stopped carrying the weight. That's the price, Annabelle. You don't get to walk away clean. You just get to walk away. I caught his wrist, held his hand against my face. What if I don't want to walk away? The words escaped before I could stop them, and I saw the impact in his eyes. Surprise, heat, something that looked dangerously like hope. Then you're more dangerous than I thought, he said, and closed the distance between us. The kiss was inevitable, brutal, necessary. His hand tangled in my hair, mine fisted in his shirt, and we collided like a war neither of us wanted to win. He tasted like whiskey and violence and promises that couldn't be kept. I kissed him back like I was drowning, like he was air, like we had more than stolen moments in a warehouse before everything burned. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. This is a terrible idea, he said. Probably. You should hate me. For the debt. For dragging you into this. I should. I pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. But right now, you're the only person in the world who sees me as something other than invisible. So terrible idea or not. I kissed him again, softer this time. Deliberate. I'm in. His arms came around me, solid and certain. And for the first time since the restaurant, I felt something other than afraid. Outside, Chicago howled against the warehouse walls. Inside, we stood in the eye of the storm and pretended we had more time than we did. The message needed to be brutal enough to provoke, subtle enough to manipulate. Jack stood over the table in our makeshift war room, satellite images and surveillance photos spread like tarot cards predicting blood. Yuna had compiled everything: Daehyun's shell companies, Kim's shopping routes, the names of everyone who'd attended their secret meetings. The conspiracy was bigger than we'd thought. More families involved. More money at stake. They need to believe I'm desperate, Jack said, tapping a photo of his cousin. Wounded animal, lashing out. So you give them exactly that, I said, understanding crystallizing. Something vicious, but sloppy. His smile was all predator. Exactly. 3 days later, Daehyun's lieutenant was found in his penthouse. Throat cut, expensive suit soaked through with blood, and clutched in his dead hand. A thumb drive containing security footage of Kim in a hotel room with one of the Italian backers. Time-stamped. Graphic. Undeniable. The message was clear. Jack knew about the betrayal. Jack was coming unhinged. Jack was making mistakes. They'll tighten security now, Yuna said, watching news coverage of the murder on a burner laptop. Move up the wedding timeline. Good. Jack's hand found the small of my back, a touch that had become habit over the past weeks. That's when we move Annabelle into position. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Marco Benedetti, a mid-level Italian associate who'd been at those conspiracy meetings but wasn't fully trusted by either side, would capture me. I'd be the proof that Jack was hunting blind, that he didn't know the real scope of the operation. Daehyun would want to interrogate me, learn what Jack knew, how many others he'd told. And I'd be inside, invisible again, listening. Marco's greedy, Jack explained, pulling up the man's financial records. I've made sure he knows there's a bounty on my associates. He'll jump at the chance to deliver you. And if he decides to collect a different way. I asked, if he hurts me before they can take custody? Jack's expression went Arctic. He won't, because he knows if he touches you, I'll do to his entire bloodline what I did to that lieutenant. He cupped my face, and the gentleness contradicted the murder in his voice. But if he tries anyway, you put 3 bullets in him. Center mass. We've trained for this. I know. I covered his hand with mine. I'm ready. No, you're not. Yuna spoke from the doorway, blunt as always. No one's ever ready for this, but you're capable. That's enough. The extraction was set for tomorrow night. Marco would ambush me outside a clinic where I'd been supposedly visiting my mother, another trail of breadcrumbs Jack had carefully laid. There'd be a struggle. He'd take me, and then I'd disappear into Daehyun's world, unarmed except for my training, and the wire so small it was embedded under my skin like a second heartbeat. That night, Jack pulled me close in the warehouse darkness, his hands mapping my body like he was memorizing coordinates. Come back to me, he said against my throat. I will. I kissed him hard enough to hurt, and when I do, we end this. Together, he promised, but we both knew that in his world, promises were just beautiful lies we told ourselves before the shooting started. Marco grabbed me outside the clinic, exactly as planned, his performance almost convincing. The gun to my ribs, the zip ties cutting into my wrists, the black hood thrown over my head, all theater, all necessary. But the fear didn't have to be faked. The drive lasted 40 minutes. When the hood came off, I was in a wine cellar that cost more than most houses, bottles worth thousands gathering dust while I knelt on cold stone. And there, descending the stairs in a white silk dress that probably cost my yearly salary, was Kim. She looked even more beautiful up close. Diamond engagement ring catching the light, makeup flawless, smile sharp as a blade. "The little waitress," she said, circling me like I was an exhibit. "Jack's pet project. I wondered if you'd survived." I kept my head down, shoulders hunched. Played the victim she expected to see. "Please, I don't know anything. He used me. He abandoned you." Kim crouched down, forced my chin up with manicured fingers. "Didn't he?" "The moment things got complicated, he threw you away. That's what men like Jack do. They consume people." "Yes." I let my voice break. I thought he cared. But after the mansion, he just left me at some motel with cash and told me to disappear. I just wanted to see my mother one more time before I ran. Kim's eyes searched mine, looking for the lie. I thought of my mother's hospital bed, of Jack's hands on my skin, of Yuna's training. I became the broken girl Kim needed me to be. "What did he tell you about his plans?" "Nothing. He didn't trust me." I swallowed hard, but I heard him on the phone. "He's going to hit the wedding. He knows about Daehyun." Kim's smile widened. "Of course he does. We wanted him to know." She stood, smoothed her dress. "The wedding is a trap, you stupid girl. Every exit covered, every angle calculated. He'll walk right into his own execution." "When?" I whispered, and she almost didn't answer. Almost. But the wine cellar's acoustics were perfect, and I'd noticed the case shipments in the corner, labels reading Beletsa Estate, delivery date stamped for tomorrow. 2 days, Kim said, at the Beletsa Vineyard, and you'll have a front row seat before we. The explosion ripped through the upper floors. Kim's head snapped toward the stairs. Gunfire erupted, close and getting closer. She reached for a weapon, but I was already moving, throwing my weight into her knees. We went down together, my zip-tied hands swinging up to catch her temple. She crumpled. Jack appeared in the doorway, smoke curling behind him, Yuna at his flank. His eyes found mine, and relief crashed across his features before the mask snapped back into place. "Beletsa Estate," I gasped as he cut my restraints. "Tomorrow night. It's a trap." "I know." He pulled me up, handed me a gun. Good thing we're better at traps than they are. We fought our way out together, moving like we'd been partners for years instead of weeks. Every corner I covered, he was already there. Every shot I took, he was watching my back. By the time we reached the extraction vehicle, I was painted in someone else's blood and grinning like a wolf. "You were brilliant," Jack said as we sped away, his hand finding mine in the darkness. "I learned from the best." He kissed me hard, tasting like smoke and victory, and I knew we were going to burn their world down. The Beletsa Estate looked like something from a fairy tale, if fairy tales ended in blood. Marble columns wrapped in white roses, string quartet playing under crystal chandeliers, 500 guests in designer everything. The combined families had gathered to witness the union that would reshape the underworld's power structure. Daehyun stood at the altar in a tuxedo that cost more than most cars, looking triumphant, waiting for his bride. Jack and I walked in through the main entrance like we owned the place. I wore midnight blue silk that clung like a second skin, a gift from Yuna, who'd smiled knowingly when she'd handed it over. Jack was devastating in all black, his tattoos hidden, his hand possessive on my lower back. To anyone watching, we looked like just another power couple. Beautiful and dangerous, and exactly where we belonged. 2 minutes, Jack murmured as we accepted champagne from a passing waiter. His tech team had already infiltrated the venue's AV system. "Stay close." The string quartet transitioned into the wedding march. Kim appeared at the top of the grand staircase, a vision in white lace and lies. Every eye turned to watch her descent. She looked radiant, victorious, completely unaware that her world was about to detonate. Jack's thumb pressed the device in his pocket. Every screen in the venue, the massive displays flanking the altar, the monitors in the cocktail areas, even the phones in guests' pockets, lit up simultaneously. Kim's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear, discussing Jack's assassination with clinical precision. The footage was damning. Her meeting with the restaurant hit squad, her plotting with Dae-hyun, her cold calculation as she'd ordered the death of the man she'd promised to love. The gasps rippled through the crowd, like a wave breaking. Kim froze on the stairs, her perfect mask cracking. Dae-hyun's face went white, and Jack stepped forward into the light, every inch the king they'd tried to dethrone. "Hello, cousin," he said. "Did I miss the ceremony? Want to see how Annabelle's transformation completes? Subscribe to never miss the explosive finale of her journey from invisible waitress to underworld queen." "Thank you." Then all hell broke loose. Dae-hyun's men reached for weapons. Jack's allies, planted throughout the crowd, responded in kind. The ballroom transformed into a war zone, crystal shattering, guests screaming, the string quartet's instruments abandoned as bullets began to fly. Jack moved like a storm, and I moved with him. Everything Yuna had drilled into me came flooding back: sight lines, cover positions, threat assessment. A man in a waiter's uniform raised a gun at Jack's blind spot. I put 2 rounds in his chest before the thought fully formed. Jack glanced back, eyes dark with approval and something hotter. "Stay with me." We fought our way toward the altar where Dae-hyun had taken cover, using overturned tables as shields. The air smelled like gunpowder and expensive perfume. I reloaded without thinking, muscle memory taking over, and realized with sharp clarity that I wasn't afraid anymore. I was alive. Then I saw her, Kim, having shed her wedding dress for tactical gear, hidden underneath, moving through the chaos with lethal grace. She had a pistol in each hand and murder in her eyes, and she was heading straight for Jack. I didn't hesitate. I broke from cover, intercepted her trajectory, and we collided like a car crash. Her first shot went wide. My return fire caught her shoulder, spinning her around. We went down together in a tangle of limbs and violence, her nails raking my face, my elbow driving into her ribs. "You stupid bitch," she hissed, blood on her teeth. "You think he'll keep you? You're just another tool to him." "Maybe." I drove my knee into her stomach, felt something crack. "But I'm the tool that's going to kill you." We rolled, fought for dominance. She was trained, professional, but I'd spent weeks learning from the best. And more than that, I had something to fight for that she'd never understood. Not power or money or status. Survival. Love. Choice. My hand found the blade strapped to my thigh. A gift from Yuna, small and deadly. Kim's eyes widened as I pulled it free. "This is for everyone you used," I said, and drove it home. Her body went rigid, surprise written across her beautiful face. Then she slumped, and I was left kneeling in pooling blood, breathing hard, transformed into something I barely recognized. Jack appeared beside me, pulled me up, checked me for injuries with hands that shook just slightly. "Are you hurt?" "No." I looked down at Kim's body, felt nothing but cold certainty. "Is it done?" Around us, the shooting had stopped. Dae-hyun knelt with his hands behind his head, surrounded by Jack's men. The family heads who'd backed the coup were being rounded up. Jack's people controlled the room. "It's done," Jack said softly, then louder to the assembled crowd. "Anyone else want to question my leadership?" Silence. Just the sound of labored breathing and expensive shoes crunching broken crystal. Jack's hand found mine, our fingers interlacing, blood and all. "Meet my partner," he announced to the room. "My consigliera, my queen, and anyone who touches her answers to me." I should have felt horror at what I'd become. Instead, I felt power, purpose, the certainty that I'd never be invisible again. I raised our joined hands, and the room bowed. 3 months later, I stood in Jack's penthouse overlooking the city that had tried to kill us both. The skyline glittered like broken promises kept, and I barely recognized the woman reflected in the floor-to-ceiling windows. Gone was the exhausted waitress in stained chef whites. In her place stood someone harder, sharper, a woman in tailored black who could negotiate a territory dispute in the morning and put 3 bullets in a target by afternoon. Jack's arms came around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Your mother wants to have dinner next week." I smiled, real and warm. "How is she?" "Dr. Chin says she's in full remission. The experimental treatment worked." His reflection met mine in the glass. "She's asking questions about your new job." "What did you tell her?" "That you're in private security, executive protection." He pressed a kiss to my temple. Not entirely a lie. Below us, the city moved like blood through veins. Chaotic, vital, ours. The family heads had fallen in line after the wedding massacre. Dae-hyun was serving his sentence in a very private, very permanent facility, and I discovered I had a talent for the strategic brutality that kept empires standing. "Do you ever miss it?" Jack asked quietly. "The simple life. Before. I thought about the gilded lotus, about carrying plates and worrying about tips and feeling invisible, about the girl who'd folded a receipt with shaking hands, thinking it would be one brave moment in an otherwise powerless life. No, I said honestly, that girl was dying slowly. At least this version of me is alive." Jack turned me in his arms, his eyes searching mine with an intensity that still made my breath catch. "Any regrets?" "Just one." I pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like whiskey and victory. "That I didn't slip you that note sooner." He laughed against my mouth, and the sound was rare enough to be precious. "My deadly, beautiful queen." "Your partner," I corrected because I'd learned that power freely given was stronger than power taken. "My everything," he said, and meant it. 3 years before, I'd been a ghost in my own life, serving drinks to people who never saw me drowning in debt, watching my mother fade. That night, I'd made a choice, slipped a receipt across a table, saved a life, destroyed my own in the process, or maybe finally started living it. Now, I ruled an empire built on blood and loyalty, loved a man as dangerous as he was devoted, and my mother was alive to see me become someone she'd never imagined. The note had cost me everything. It had given me more. I walked to Jack's desk where the original receipt sat framed, faded ink on cheap paper, the words barely legible. "Your fiancé sold you out an hour ago." They're in position. 10 words that had rewritten 2 lives. "What are you thinking?" Jack asked. "That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to stay invisible." I traced the frame's edge. "Even when the cost is everything you thought you were." He came to stand beside me, both of us staring at the artifact of our origin story. "Would you do it again?" Knowing everything that came after. I thought of Kim's blood on my hands, of the training that had broken me down and rebuilt me lethal, of the debt that had become a throne, of Jack's heartbeat against mine in the darkness, both of U.S. survivors of a war we'd started with a folded piece of paper. "Every single time," I said. Jack raised his whiskey glass. "To the girl who refused to be a ghost." I clinked mine against his. "To the man who saw her anyway." We drank, and the city sprawled beneath us like a conquered kingdom, beautiful, brutal, and finally, impossibly, ours. The end. But your story is just beginning. Listen, my ex told me I'd never make it on YouTube. Said I couldn't grow a following, that my stories were too intense, that I should give up and get a real job. She walked away because she didn't believe in me. But you know what? I'm still here, still writing, still fighting. Just like Annabelle refused to stay invisible, I'm refusing to stay silent. So here's my question for you. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments. I want to see how far this story has traveled. What did you think of Kim's betrayal? Was she a master manipulator, or did she underestimate Jack from the start? Let me know your take. And Annabelle's boldness, that moment she slipped the note, knowing it could cost her everything. Would you have done the same? Or would you have stayed invisible, stayed safe? Be honest. Here's the thing. Every subscriber proves my ex wrong. Every like, every comment, every share is you telling the universe that stories like this matter. That creators like me deserve a shot. If this story grabbed you, if you felt Annabelle's fear, Jack's intensity, the tension of that final confrontation, then hit that subscribe button. Help me prove that a guy with a laptop and too much caffeine can build something real. That passion beats doubt. That we don't have to stay invisible. Subscribe. Comment. Share this with someone who loves dark romance and high-stakes drama. Let's build an empire together. One story, one subscriber, one middle finger to everyone who said we couldn't at a time. The Queen rose. Now it's your turn. Welcome to the family.